So how can we ever hope to attain any kind of liberation when we're so busy allowing ourselves to be reduced to tools in the hands of entities and actors that could not care less about us? Let's reflect on that a little bit and let's see if we can come up with some kind of sophisticated response to this problem. Let's start with our man Immanuel Kant, who said the following: always recognize that human individuals are ends and do not use them as means to your end. This to me is one of the very central, I would say, statements of ethics, right? Always view or approach and relate to other people as the end in themselves. The second you turn them into the means for other ends, you are using human beings as tools. You're reducing them to objects, to pieces in your personal chess game. And why is this interesting? It's interesting because it seems that either we are a tool or we are the user of the tool, right? It doesn't seem that there is a lot of middle ground on this question. So one of the main challenges we're facing on this journey towards a higher degree of liberation is exactly this: the degree to which we have allowed ourselves to be reduced into the fucking tools of entities and agents that do not care about us. Now, for most of us, talking about this subject might make us a little nervous, right? Because we are at the same time, apart from having allowed ourselves to be reduced into tools, we're also deeply in denial about it. And therefore, we don't like someone to come and tell us that we're a tool. And that puts certain demands on us in our interaction with this question, right? We really have to lower our shoulders and just be ready to take the criticism and just realize that our egos are highly oriented towards not acknowledging the degree to which we have allowed ourselves to be reduced into tools. And the number of ways in which we have allowed this to happen in this late modern culture is quite astonishing. If we were to diagnose this age of humanity, we might call it the age of alienation. And this alienation is, of course, and for obvious reasons, intimately related to this problem of our reduction into tools. The examples of this problem are many. Capitalism, politics, even in our private relations, this mechanism manifests itself. And we're going to get into all the examples. I have a long list. Basically, this video is one long list of examples, but let's just talk about it a little bit first. Because how do we define a tool? Well, one simple definition might be if we have allowed ourselves to be manipulated into serving somebody else's goals or ends without even realizing it, then we are definitely, to some extent, a damn tool in their hands. And so if we truly long to become liberated and empowered beings under our own authority, we really have to come to terms with the degree to which this has happened in our lives, the degree to which we have allowed ourselves to become the mere means of powers larger than ourselves. And as I said, this is not going to be pleasant, but we have to do it. So let's list some of the examples of how this is the case. And no, I'm not promising this is going to be pleasant. Very few harsh or difficult realizations are rarely pleasant, at least firstly. It is, as with so much else, it's a wall of fire. Liberation lies on the other side of this unpleasant realization about ourselves. But just know, if you're going to be listening to this list, hoping to see how you're not a tool in any of these examples, you're going to be disappointed. And the mindset we have to approach an exercise such as this with is one of openness. And one of the challenges we're facing is, as Jonathan Swift said, it is very difficult to reason a man out of a position that he didn't reason himself into. This reduction into tools is a manipulative act, right? It's not something that we chose to do. It was something that we were manipulated into, and therefore we become slaves to it in a very weird way in which we don't want to realize that we've been enslaved by it. And so we really become the proponents of our own slave masters, which is a very strange situation to be in. So I would advise you, open your heart and just be ready to acknowledge the ways in which you have been turned into a fucking tool. Here we go. Mindless scrolling. If you're out there in the click economy, just basically toasting your own attention span on a never-ending stream of empty entertainment, you're a tool. Any kind of addiction. I don't care if it's alcohol, if it's sugar, if it's attention. If we're addicted to anything, we have been reduced to a tool for that thing. Anyone believing in the narratives and worldviews presented by media so obviously corrupted is a tool. Anyone who thinks that we just need to get through this crisis and there's not a new crisis prepared for us on the other side of this are a tool. Mindless consumers, ignorant to their own manipulation, financing entities with very little care for the biosphere or the long-term health of the human race is a tool. People sitting in queues outside Apple stores, don't get me started on this. The sheep allowing a not fully tested vaccine to be shot into their bodies, tools. Anyone who sold their soul to the idea of financial success as the end-all be-all, tool. Anyone financing or in any way sending their money to entities that are a detriment to the long-term survival of the human species, tools. If we're paying off a mortgage or in any other way have sold our soul to Moloch, we're a tool. Anyone subscribing to any kind of ideology, I do not care if it's conservatives, progressives, if it's feminists, if it's anarchists, if it's socialists. If you're subscribing to any ideology, if you're building your worldview on a fixed set of ideas that turns you into the virtuous party and everyone who disagrees with you into idiots, you are a tool. Voters voting for liars with antisocial personality disorder who does not care about them, tools. Anyone who allows their tax dollars to be spent on killing civilians on the other side of the planet is a tool. Nationalists, tools. Anyone who believes in the left-right dichotomy of politics, despite the fact that inequality has been rising since the 70s, is a tool. Anyone ignoring the final states of the establishment of the surveillance state is a tool. Anyone doing it while claiming to love their children is a hypocrite. Anyone mouthing talking points about any topic that they do not understand is a tool. If we think so-called justified violence has ever solved any problem, we're a tool. If we think things are going to get better by themselves while we just entertain ourselves to death, we're a tool. Anyone who approached love, dating, and mating from a transactionalist philosophy is a tool. Anyone adhering to the thoughts or thought structures of any particular group is a tool. Anyone who thinks that all humanity's problems are the fault of a single group is a tool. Anyone subscribing to any organized religion is a tool. If we think things are going pretty well for us, we're probably a tool. And finally, if we struggle to own up to being a tool, well. So what might be a meaningful response to this? Well, of course, like the first question we might want to ask ourselves is, in what ways have I allowed myself to be turned into a mere tool in the hands of entities or actors that see me as nothing but an end for their own means? So what do we do now? What might be what is like a sophisticated response to this problem of our own disempowerment and our own playing along with this disempowerment, which is happening on a cultural wide scale, right? Everybody's, all entities, all fucking institutions, companies, corporations, they're trying to reduce us into objects, and we are playing along with this, and therefore we are really the arbiters of our own disempowerment. But what might be a sophisticated response to this problem? Well, we start, as always, right, by recognizing the problem. And in order to do that, we have to recognize our own reluctance to recognize our own skin in the game regarding this problem, right? We have to be really honest with ourselves about the fact that we are tools and about the fact that we don't want to realize that we're tools. Step number one. Step number two, we're going to have to ask ourselves, how did I allow this to happen to me? Like what kind of internal, psychological and subconscious or unconscious dynamics am I using to allow myself to be reduced into this object? How do I subconsciously justify this degree of self-abandonment? What does it give me? This might entail looking back into our histories and our traumas to understand why we have allowed this self-disempowerment to take place. We have to ask ourselves, what do we secretly feel that we gain from this self-abandonment? Step number three, we have to ask ourselves and be honest. Do I truly want to cease being a tool, or do I actually feel that the gains from this are worth it? Like the security and the safety and the respect from my peers who are also tools. Step four, what kind of attributes would I have to cultivate in myself in order to break free of this hall of mirrors, which is the modern ideological landscape? What is the developmental distance from me where I am now to this person who would actually be able to do this? Step five, how can I best and most effectively cultivate these attributes in myself? What kind of practices would I have to engage in order to most effectively cease this self-abandonment? Step six, what would it look like to not be a tool? And how would it feel? Answering these questions will probably be a pretty strong foundation from which to start dissolving and transcending this self-abandonment that we are all collectively participating in. If you'd be willing to share some of your thoughts on this topic, I would be really excited to read them. Apart from that, well,